My update on Project Teacup is secret third project, which doesn't yet have a name. This journey is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Welcome to Yoyogi Park. We're currently in Tokyo. It is a vibe here. I don't know if you can hear the ambulance or the construction, but the plan was to come down to Yoyogi Park, enjoy the last of the ginkgos. I'm hoping that you can hear me because this is the very first time I'm filming off of this microphone, so fingers crossed that despite all the many noises we have, the audio is really good. Sorry, Tyler's behind the camera and he just looked up at the construction as well. But yeah, I have some updates for you. I have some things I want to share on Project Teacup. I want to talk about some goals for 2025, and also I did a Q&A call out on Instagram. If you ever want to be a part of Q&As in the future, I post them all over there on Instagram. It's the easiest way for me to compile them. So please feel free to check out my Instagram if you ever want to be a part of Q&As in the future. I filmed so many things here. I filmed a short story back when we were living here. I've filmed in this park many times, and of course I wrote a book called A Year in Tokyo, and that featured the ginkgo leaves on the front, and this part of Yoyogi Park just has the loveliest ginkgo leaves. But anyway, I am digressing. Let me get my phone. First of all, I wanted to give you a bit of an update on Project Teacup because I did the call out for the Q&A, and the vast majority of things that I got asked is, do you have updates on Project Teacup? My update on Project Teacup is that we are now officially on submission. So we've been on submission for about a month now with the novel, and if you're not familiar with this process or with me, hi, my name is Christy. I wrote a novel over the course of a really long time. I came up with the idea in 2020. I've been writing it pretty solidly since 2021 or 2022, I forget now. It's been a while. I did start writing it in 2020. It was just a bit more haphazard. I got a literary agent at the end of last year, and we are now coming up on 1 full year with a literary agent. I think it'll be 1 full year in a few days. But yeah, basically the summary of what has happened this year is that I did maybe 2.5-ish really big drafts of the novel. Yeah, it was a lot of work. It took me a really long time. I dug really deep, and I'm really proud of the story that I wrote. And you know, anything that I was a little bit worried about when I was querying the novel, I feel like I tackled that in these drafts. But it was just a really long process, both battling my timelines. The drafts took me a lot longer than I thought they would. I ended up doing a lot more work on them than I originally intended to. And then I got sick a lot this year, and then we traveled a lot this year. Life just kept throwing spanner after spanner in the works. And then obviously I'm also working around my literary agent's timeline because she works with many clients, and so she's not going to be able to read a book overnight. And so I send it to my agent, and then I wait to get the feedback, and then we go on another round of drafts, and it is now officially on submission. So it means that it's been sent out to our first round of editors at the major publishing houses, which is really exciting. We've gotten some really good feedback about the book so far, but honestly, beyond that, I don't have any updates I can actually share with you. This process just takes a really long time, and also, I'm just going to be totally candid here, it is emotionally really tough. Like really hard. I thought that querying was hard, but submission honestly is so much worse because it's like you're at the final hurdle, and so prepping the novel and then sending it out and then just waiting. This is the very final gate to get through, and so the process of going through that is a lot of pressure. It's really scary. It's very stressful. It's been really hard, but it's all been a wonderful lesson in resilience, and I think that everything I learned from this process of being on submission, trying to learn how to be patient, because, I'm a child of the digital realm. I have a YouTube channel. I self-published my last book. I'm so used to everything being really quick and having a lot of control over the stuff that I make, and you have to wait a long time. You have to wait for other people, and timelines for editors, for publishers, for agents, for everything in this industry. It just takes a really long time. I never intended to take a full year to edit the novel. I have no idea how long submission's going to take. Also heard that a lot of editors are like 2 or 3 months behind at the moment, so that is simply what it is. Those are all of my updates on Project Teacup. We're on submission, which is a huge achievement. I'm very excited. I'm very happy. I am so proud of this novel. I think the novel it's really strong now. I'm really pleased with it. I'm just so proud of it. But it's out of my hands. It's out of my hands, and I need to learn how to be okay with that. And that's kind of been what I've been struggling with for the past few months as we've gotten closer and closer to submission. We've only been on submission for just over a month, but it's been an interesting time. Moving along to my 2025 plans and Project Spiegel tent. To be honest with you guys, another moment of me being very candid, I have done fuck all. of Spiegel Tent. I have done so little of that novel. I have a brain that really struggles with tabs being left open, and so to my mind, the Project Teacup tab is still very much open. I'm very much anxiously waiting to find out what's going to happen with that, and so I'm finding it really tough to move on to something new, because honestly, writing Project Teacup took everything from me. Like, it was emotionally really draining. I feel like I pushed myself the most creatively I've ever pushed myself. It was really hard. In terms of like the work hours I put in, it was a really long time. Working nights, working weekends, I just exhausted myself. Like, when I wasn't sick or I wasn't traveling this year, I was just pushing really hard to do as much work as I could. I planned to do like at least a couple drafts of Spiegel Tent this year, and that just didn't happen. And honestly, that is life. Sometimes that happens. But I think of the past few weeks, especially since being in Japan, it's been really nice to get away and to try and get some headspace, just like literally thinking about it and brainstorming it. I've simplified a few things. I've made a couple other things more complex. I think I have a bit more of an idea thematically of what I want to explore with that novel. And so I'm hoping that Spiegel Tent can be something that I can get in. And to be honest, I'm hoping that I can draft it quite quickly, because again, it's more of a modern novel. It's a bit closer to my speaking voice. So I don't think it's going to be as hard to find the voice of that story. And then the next project I want to work on in 2025 is a secret third project, which doesn't yet have a name. It's something a bit more ambitious. It's something that I've been thinking about for the last 2 or 3 years, I want to say. I've got a bunch of research I want to do for that novel. The voice of that book is going to be a lot more similar to Project Teacup. So Project Teacup is like this 1920s kind of whimsical fantasy, a little bit formal sort of voice, whereas Spiegel Tent will be a bit more young female Australian. And then this third book is going to be maybe set in an older time than Project Teacup. I don't know, we'll see. There's a few things I'm interested in and I'm excited about. So for me, hopefully 2025 is going to be the year of Spiegel Tent. I want to finish Spiegel Tent next year, and then I also want to do at least half of the first draft of the big ambitious novel, Secret Project number 3, which we don't have a name for yet. Now let's move on to the Q&A portion of this video. What would you tell the you of early 2023 if you could? This is such a good question. I would tell her to learn patience. It's not that I'm that impatient of a person, but it's just that I do like having answers. I make a video, I can post, if I edit really quickly, I could post that video on the very same day. I get immediate feedback, I get immediate gratification from YouTube. And writing novels is more like, okay, you wrote a thing, let's wait 2 to 3 years before anyone can read it. That's been a really tough thing. And like, as I said, right now we're on submission. There's no guarantee we're gonna get a publishing deal. I would tell 2023 me to learn how to be at peace with the things she cannot control. Try to be as compassionate as you can. This journey is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And of course, the really sage advice of, if you want to write novels, you do not live or die with one novel. It's about a body of work, it's not about a single thing. What is your favorite time of day to write? My favorite time of day to write is whenever my brain is working. In an ideal world, I would love to say early morning, but I think I always concentrate best at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, 1 a.m. Like, when I'm in a really good flow for writing, it's generally like after dinner. It will take me all day to concentrate, and then it's only once 6 p.m. hits, 7 p.m. hits that I'll finally be able to concentrate. Despite trying out the writing routines of many different authors, I do not personally have a writing routine. Any time of the day when I can concentrate is my favorite time to write. What is the hardest part of the writing process for you? For sure, it's nothing to do with writing. It is rejection, it is waiting, it is sending out things and sending out things and sending out things, and just constantly waiting. When you write stuff, you want people to read it, you want feedback. That's pretty natural. And so yeah, the waiting is absolute torture. In terms of the actual writing, I think getting started with the story is always the hardest. I always find stories a lot harder in the first few chapters. How have you balanced a job with writing? So honestly, it's just about having patience. I've mentioned this so many times. It's about not comparing yourself to people who write full-time. Like I've said so many times, like, guys, I am not a full-time writer. My actual job that pays my rent is that I am a content producer. I'm a content creator. I'm a content creator. I balance writing around my full-time job. I write in the evenings, I write on weekends. I'm also really lucky in that I can choose to work much later on a Monday or a Tuesday and then take a Thursday off to write, and then I'm still doing full-time hours, but I'm just juggling my week around. And with the way my brain works, honestly, that is the only way that I can work. As I've said again and again, I concentrate in bursts. I also get bored really easily, and this is obviously such a privileged position to be coming from, because not everyone can be self-employed. Not everyone everyone can rearrange their work to suit themselves, but traveling as much as we have has been such an amazing brain reset. Like, I know that in the lead up to travel, I always end up working many weeks or months of overtime. So it's like, in terms of it being relaxing, it's not necessarily always that relaxing. And yeah, because like with my job is quite creatively demanding. I work really long hours. And so going away somewhere is always really helpful for me. I think it's so important if you work full time or if you have really significant commitments, say you're a parent or you're a carer, if you have a disability, if there's something really significant that affects your ability to perform labor, I think it's really important to treat yourself with patience and compassion, because not everyone has the ability to write like Brandon Sanderson or V.E. Schwab or like these amazing writers who have these huge prolific outputs. Terry Pratchett, when he was working in comms for a water company, wrote 500 words every night. That was what was doable for him, and that was how he became an amazing prolific writer. And so with working full time, I think it's honestly just about finding the routine that works for you, being consistent but not overworking yourself. So that's kind of part of how I make it work, like just trying to have that patience to know that I don't need to write a novel every 3 months. Like, that's not necessarily realistic for me. How will doing an MFA, so Master of Fine Arts / a master's degree in writing, make a difference in my writing, or would it not? So here's what I did. I started by doing a commerce degree. So my bachelor's degree, my undergrad, was in marketing, and then I decided that I wanted more learning, and so I decided to embark on a master's in writing and literature, and I did that remote so that I could move to Japan and be an English teacher and become a travel writer and do all the things that I did whilst also studying my master's degree part-time. Then I moved home to Australia eventually, and I was still trying to do the master's degree, but I was working full-time in the arts. It was a really high workload. I was doing that. I was still a travel writer. I was doing this YouTube channel. I was trying to write a novel. I was about to query that novel, the first novel that I queried. Something had to give, and it was kind of between the masters or it was between YouTube. And thankfully, I chose to keep YouTube, and I quit the master's degree and I graduated with a graduate diploma. So that is my story and context and spiel on that. I feel like I got so much out of doing my half a master's degree, and I would love, like absolutely love, to go back and finish a master's degree one day. I've been looking into different courses that I might like to do one day. Do you need to do a master's degree though? Absolutely not. Like, the thing is with a master's degree is that it's going to give you a bit of extra context around literature. It's a good opportunity to get feedback, but what you need to be a good writer is to put the time into writing. If you're already a really busy person and you work full time and you can't give up your job to do this MFA, the hours that you're going to spend doing that MFA are going to be kind of equivalent to what you would spend writing a novel, right? So if you need to spend 10 hours a week studying for your master's degree, like, would you be better off actually spending that time working on your writing, submitting short stories to places? Like, what do you actually need to be a writer? At the end of the day, all you actually need is just to sit down and write and to sit down and better your craft. A lot of what you can get from a master's degree, you can get from just like reading books and joining a writer's circle. I think this idea of you need to spend like tens of thousands of dollars to get an education is so outdated, and it's so silly. And honestly, if you guys want me to just like make a video on all the books that I would recommend you read instead of doing a master's degree, I could make like a miniature syllabus for those of you who want to avoid having to do a master's degree. I'm happy to do that. Like, I'm happy to just summarize the things that I learned from my master's or my half a master's and actually just share that with you guys as a resource. I'm happy to do that. So if you want that, please let me know. Master's degrees in academia are not for everyone. I loved studying. I would definitely go back and do it again. But if it's the difference between like getting time to actually sit down and write your novel and not doing it because you're going to do a master's degree first, I would say do whatever you can to prioritize actual time writing. I have an idea about a book. When is the best time to start sending out for an agent? Basically, the process ideally should be get the idea for your book, write the book, edit the book, re-edit the book, do everything you can to make the book as polished as you can on your own. Maybe get some beta readers, maybe send it to some very trusted friends or family. I actually only got Tyler to read the book before I submitted it. Consider getting other people to read it. Then you want to start the process of getting an agent. They're going to remember you, and if you've already submitted that novel to them and it wasn't ready yet, you can't resubmit to that same agent. You don't want your very first impression in this industry to be a negative one. So I would say write the novel, edit the novel, edit the novel, edit the novel, make sure you're really happy with it, and then start the process of looking for an agent. I think while you're editing the book, you can probably start doing your research, but I would say don't do the bulk of your research super duper early, because agents will close to submissions, new agents will open, people will change agencies, the industry will change, so you don't want to use outdated information. So a very lovely compliment. And also, do you have blank page anxiety? And if so, how do you overcome it? You just got to push through. Yes, I absolutely do have blank page anxiety. I have it at the moment with Spiegel 10. Like, it's been really, really tough getting started on that project, and I've written a whole bunch and I've thrown out a whole bunch, and I'm in this very early iterative construct and dismantle cycle that I tend to do for some reason, which it drives me mad, but it's the only way I know how to make stuff. Yeah, I definitely get that kind of anxiety, but it's the kind of thing where you just have to accept that the first few words that you write, the first several thousand words that you write, like they don't have to be perfect. I give myself permission to write the draft of something. It kind of gives me permission to just like not worry and not care, because you don't want any of your inner critic inhibiting you from getting those words on a page, right? Because I kind of look at it now as in my first draft, my zero draft, whatever, it's just a rough sketch. There's going to be lines that are in the wrong place. Like if I'm sketching a draw, if I'm doing an illustration, like when I do the rough sketch, I'm going to erase bits. I'm going to make mistakes. All of that is absolutely fine and absolutely normal. And so I try to approach my writing in the very same way. The very first draft of a story, just a rough sketch. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be little bits that say, fix this later, add this person's name in, write this scene later. All of that is totally fine. What happened to draft 5 of Project Teacup? I feel like we went straight from draft 4 to draft 6. So draft 5 was basically like a copy editing draft. It's kind of hard for me when I say, okay, this is draft 4, this is draft 5, this is draft 6. Like within each draft is actually multiple drafts, because I will read the book, make tweaks as I'm reading, do a really, really big edit on the book, and then do another layer. With every single draft, there's at least like 3 drafts within it. And so I just kind of felt that with draft 5, I had done enough of those little miniature in between drafts that actually it was reasonable just to jump straight to draft 6. What is revision like on your own versus with your agent? It's honestly pretty similar. She'll give me a document of things that she thinks like are good, things that she thinks aren't working, and then for the more recent drafts that we've done together, she's also additionally left like little comments on the actual document to be like, can we come back to this and flesh this out a little bit more? It's honestly no different, because I do the exact same thing. Like when I'm reading the book, I will write notes down in a notebook. Again, like if your agent gives you something to change that you don't agree with, you don't have to change it. I've been really, really lucky because like all of my agent's feedback has been the most sage, amazing feedback. She has an amazing eye for storytelling. Part of why the drafts have taken me such a long time is not just because of her feedback, it's because I've taken her feedback and I've gone, okay, we could also do this, we could also do that, we could add this thing in here. And so it's like I am the one who just won't stop tinkering on the thing. Like I want to make everything perfect. Where do you find emails of agents? On their website. Make sure you find it on their website. Do not go to Reddit. Do not go to some random forum. Do not use like the submittal function in Query Manager, because like a lot of the information in Query Manager is wrong. Like use it as like a jumping off point to do your research if you want to, but you should be getting all of your information directly from the agent's website, because obviously that's going to be the most up to date. And if you don't know where to start, just turn to Google. Google is your friend. Type in literary agents. Go to your favorite authors. Find out who your favorite authors' agents are. Once you start down the process of finding agents, it gets easier and easier to build that foundation of knowledge. Do agents prefer a fully polished manuscript? Obviously it would depend on the agent. Like I'm not entirely sure. I would say that your manuscript needs to be like 85% of the way there if you're a perfectionist. So if you're not a perfectionist, I would say make sure it's 110%. But if you are a perfectionist, I would say make sure it's at like the 85% mark, because A, that last 15%, that can take you years to edit, and B, there are always going to be little changes. Like your agent's going to have changes, the publishing house is going to have changes. You want the story to be basically like the best that you can make it, and the most important things that you need to get right are the voice, concept for the story, all of these like really, really big things that are hard to change. Stuff like a character's name, the book title, the way the ending goes, all of those little things, they can be really, really easy to tweak in editing, but voice particularly and style, like those are the things you definitely need to get right, because voice cannot be taught. And so I've heard anecdotally that if a story has a really, really strong voice but the plot is kind of weak, that author is much more likely to be offered representation than if the voice is really weak but if the plot is really good, because plot is really easy to edit, but voice is something so much more intrinsic to the writer. And the very last one, has getting an agent made you feel more confident as a writer, or do you feel more pressure now? Honestly, the thing that makes me feel the most pressure is talking about my novels in front of an audience of over 200,000. Like that's the thing that's going to give me the most pressure. And not from the perspective of, oh, I'm scared if you guys see me fail. It's totally fine for you guys to see me fail. I've spoken to you about all of my rejections so far. I've gotten so many rejections. I don't care. All of that is fine to share. What I worry about is like letting you guys down and like causing confusion. And like that's kind of where the pressure comes from. And I suppose like it can be quite vulnerable, like talking about a story and not really knowing knowing what the outcome is going to be and not really having information that you can share. Whereas working with an agent is no more pressure, because obviously when you write a story, like, no one's expecting you to be perfect. I think that's part of one of the reasons why I'm really, really glad to be going through this process in my late 20s as opposed to like my early 20s. Like when I hadn't done much creative work on my own, when I hadn't spent a lot of time in the workforce, like before I'd had a full-time job and collaborated with so many people, I think I would have found it a lot harder. I think I would have had a lot more pressure, but I think because I have so much more confidence in myself as a creative and as a person who produces creative work, honestly, like it feels totally fine. I think I picked the right agent. I feel really, really comfortable with my agent. I feel like I can be honest with her, and so all of that is really good. So yeah, there's not been any additional pressure having an agent. It's honestly felt really supportive. It's been great. I felt like I've gotten some amazing feedback on my work, and I feel like I've really, really grown as a writer over the course of the past year. And mostly what I need to do now personally is get a wriggle on with the next novel. Rejection is really, really hard, and waiting for outcomes for months and months and months on end is really hard, and the only thing that we control is the creative work. The only thing we can control is the actual writing. And so I think that I just need to keep getting better with finding peace in not knowing the answers to things. I think that's basically what I need. Yeah, I need to write the next story, and that's my plan in 2025. I'm excited to take a solid few weeks off of doing anything creative. I went to Daikanyama Tea Site yesterday, and I sat outside and I did some drawing. We went to the Ghibli Museum. Oh my god, first time since 2019 that we've been to the Ghibli Museum. It was so magical. I wanted to cry the whole time. I love the Ghibli Museum. It's so hard to get tickets for there. We're going to be heading up to Yuzawa really soon. We're going to stay in a like ryokan style hotel with an onsen. We're going to stay in the snow. It's been a really, 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 really hard year, both from a work perspective, a career perspective. I've worked really hard this year. I've also been sick for so much of this year, and I just feel very, very grateful to be here in Tokyo, to just take some time to chill out and not do anything and not work, and yeah, read some books and go sit in an onsen in the snow. That's like I'm so excited for that. It's going to be really, really good. Thank you so much for spending this time with me in Yoyogi Park amongst the ginkgo leaves and crows and little dogs. And also before I go, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone over on Patreon for supporting my channel. I would not be able to make these videos without the beautiful people over on Patreon. So as a thank you to all of those people, I post bonus content, writing updates, vlogs, and various other videos to the Wyvern tier. We have a book club, a Discord server, all of those fabulous things. So if you want to check out Patreon, there is a link in the description down below. Take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.